All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm really excited that we're able to join so many folks today to really talk more about what graduate school is all about. So my name is Amanda Ostrico. I'm the Assistant Vice Provost and Director of Graduate Enrollment Management at the University of Kansas. And I am joined by a couple of my colleagues, one from Graduate Studies and one from the Alumni Association. So I will let them introduce themselves and then I will go ahead and start our presentation. So Howard, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Howard Graham. I direct the Jayhawk Career Network and the KU Alumni Association. Also have an MA and PhD from the University of Kansas. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Howard. All right, Jen.
Hi there, I'm Jen Roberts. I'm the Vice Provost for Grad Studies here at KU, and I'm also a professor in the Department of Geology.
All right, thank you, Jen. All right, so overview of what we will discuss today. So we did our brief introductions. I should also say that you are welcome to have your camera on if you'd like, and certainly ask questions in the chat throughout the session here. But there should also be time at the end to ask questions, whether in the chat or to turn your camera on and ask questions then. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the things to think about when you're considering going to graduate school. And then some time talking about what graduate school really looks like. And then we'll also share some resources, some specific resources for this week, for this Explore Graduate School Week, as well as some broader resources that we would encourage you to check out. So first, I want to highlight some of the things to really think about when you're deciding whether or not to go to graduate school and deciding if it's a good fit for you and your future professional and career goals. So from a career standpoint, you might be interested in an advanced degree because of the particular field that you're interested in. So advanced degrees are common in fields like business, education, healthcare, science, technology, engineering, and math are the STEM disciplines. So in business, for example, a lot of times individuals who are in accounting or who are in career paths where a Master of Business Administration and MBA might be beneficial often find that an advanced degree in business is helpful for their career goals. In education, individuals often become teachers or counselors or other administrators like myself or Howard in universities where having an advanced degree really helps you with your career goals. Healthcare and social services are both areas where a lot of times additional training for things like licensure or other credentials are really helpful to have that additional coursework and often that advanced degree that's associated with it. And similarly, programs that are in STEM disciplines often really have a lot more information that you learn at the graduate level when it comes to learning really the latest advances in technology in those fields. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics that I'm putting a link to here at the bottom, and you'll get a link to these presentations as well, so you can just click directly on this information. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has a lot more information on the typical degree levels by occupation, and this is data that was provided a few years ago from the BLS. So still thinking really about career benefits, a graduate degree really can improve your earnings over time. So this is a chart from 2019 from the department, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it really walks through what the median weekly earnings are by degree type. So with the highest really being the doctoral and professional degree, followed by master's, bachelor's, and then the lower levels of education. The BLS also put together similar information looking at employment stability, where those with more advanced degrees tend to have lower rates of unemployment, and again getting higher as those educational levels are lower. So still really thinking about career growth, but also getting a little bit more into broader opportunities to thinking about how you can make connections through graduate school. So a graduate degree really can increase your professional options and your network, and I'll go through several different ways that happens. So one is through classmates themselves. They often have work experience and really become great resources as you look to either improve or change your career. Oh, let me go back here. Uh, the next is faculty. So faculty are great resources. They really can guide you to connect with your graduate work to really see what it is that you're interested in. And they're really great when it comes to serving as mentors and to helping out with your professional goals. And when Jen goes over her part of the presentation, she'll talk a little bit more about those aspects. A lot of programs offer assistantships as well as internships or practicums, and those really provide more in-depth training, really apprenticeship type experiences for graduate students to really learn a lot more about the discipline, really become more engaged in the discipline. It really can become helpful later when individuals are searching for jobs to have had that assistantship experience where you really got to do a whole lot more in a particular area and really get into that research. So conducting research, just kind of staying along those same lines, really does help you make those connections when it comes to working with your colleagues at your current institution, as well as networking with colleagues at other institutions and just really throughout your professional organization. And so, speaking of professional organizations, this is another area that some of you might already be involved with in whatever capacity that you have at this point. So, whether that's through your undergraduate coursework or through your employment right now. But this is a really great area where you can gain more skills, really connect to more resources, connect to more individuals who are really in your field. And I can give my own example here of how my professional organization has really helped me over the years. So the professional organization that I'm the most involved with is called NAGAP, which is an organization that supports graduate enrollment management professionals. And I really became involved with NAGAP a number of years ago, in part when I was working full time, but then also when I was in graduate school. And so one of the first, I should say, besides going to some of the conferences, really one of the first things I did to get involved with that professional organization as a graduate student was I applied for a research grant that they had. And fortunately, I was awarded that research grant. And so then as part of that, I was able to, use that funding to really study graduate students, which is what I was studying, and then also to provide my findings and that information at the national conference, and then also to write up information for their professional organization magazine, journal / newsletter that they have. And that was really kind of my first foray into really becoming more involved with with my professional organization. Then after that, I decided to volunteer, and I started to serve on the research committee that actually gave out those grants. And then after that, I volunteered again to serve on the professional development committee, and now I serve on the professional development committee as chair, and I'm a member of our governing board. And there are a number of other things I did along the way, but just one example of how my organization has helped me both as a graduate student, but then also as a professional to really stay connected and to be really connected to those best practices in the field. So getting a graduate degree isn't all about career growth or change. You also might find that it's a good fit for you because of the chance that it gives you really to nurture your curiosity in a specific area. It really might spark your passion for social change in certain areas. So it really gives you an opportunity to immerse yourself in one specific area. It gives you an opportunity to really develop your critical thinking skills, which often then does spark your interest in larger societal conversations, where really having a graduate degree really does help you to influence that change within society. And I've listed here just a few examples of ways in which current KU students have really contributed to that, kind of larger societal goal for change and discovery. And again, you'll have links to these. So there was one fairly recent discovery of a graduate student who discovered a new snake through our history museum. There was a student who was awarded a grant to study gender-based disparities in Bangladeshi hospitals. And these are the types of things that our national organization, the Council of Graduate Schools at CGS, also profiles on their website in their grad impact stories. And it's the CGS website doesn't just have KU information, it has broad information from a number of institutions. And so I would encourage you to really look at the types of research that graduate students are doing out there that really does impact their larger communities in which they live and work. All right, so another important thing to really think about when looking at graduate school is if graduate school is something that you would want to immediately enroll in after completing an undergraduate degree, or if you would want to wait and take some time to do an internship or work and then enroll later. And really the answer to this question, as it is to so many things in graduate school, is it really depends. It depends on your interest and your career goals. So for example, are you looking at opportunities where you need work experience? So does your program, like MBAs, for example, does your program already require that you have some sort of full-time work experience? My own program that I attended, so I have a master's of higher education from the University of Kansas here, as well as my doctorate degree is in higher education administration, also from the University of Kansas. And I can say that I started working full-time at KU for about a year before I decided to go to graduate school. And for me personally, it was helpful to really have that work experience, to know what it was that I was interested in. I, for example, didn't know that there were even master's degrees in higher education. I knew of other professional programs like MBAs, but I had no idea as an undergraduate student that there were career opportunities for me to stay to work in a college or university as an administrator without being a faculty member. On the other hand, there certainly are a number of programs where it makes sense to go straight into a graduate degree after you've completed your undergraduate degree, and it's an extension and really concentration of that work that you were interested in as an undergraduate student. So again, it's going to depend on what your own interests are and what your career goals are. It's also going to depend on the degree level that you're interested in. So are you interested in a master's degree or a doctoral degree, or both? And are you interested in really, professional based programs where you're doing a lot to really make sure that you are going to be, entering into a specific profession when you're done, or is it more of a research area that you're interested in? And while you of course have some ideas of what your career goal might be in the end, perhaps it's really that research that's driving it. And so more of the research-based programs are going to be your doctoral programs. And so again, it depends on those types of questions that you need to ask yourself as to what your own interests are and what it is you really want to do when you're done with your degree. So thinking about the financial and time investments are also really important. I would say these are some of the most serious things to think about when you're thinking about graduate school, and to think about them, really seriously as investments. So when it comes to funding and cost, it is important to figure out how you're going to fund your program. So there are a number of ways to fund your graduate program, and we have a presentation later this week on how you fund your graduate program. But again, that's going to depend on. Let me go back here. My mouse is being jumpy this morning. There we go. So for the funding, it's again going to depend on. Are you looking at programs that have assistantships, that have fellowships and scholarships? Those are more common at the doctoral level and in our research-based programs, but they absolutely are available for other professional programs and master's programs as well. Again, looking at my own example with our School of Education here at KU, the School of Education has a number of scholarships that they give out to their students, whether they're in research-based or more professional-based programs. They might be smaller scholarships, but if you're attending part-time, like I did as a student, then that very well could be the best way to finance your education. You could also be someone who is working full-time and has an employer that sponsors your education. So again, at KU, continuing to use KU as an example, staff members can take up to one course at a time after they've been at KU for at least 6 months and have that course sponsored. There are also different opportunities that become available when you submit the FAFSA. So the FAFSA is for domestic students. There is a similar form for international students as well. They're fairly simple forms that I would encourage everyone to complete, just to make sure that you have all of your options available for funding your education. And then the other thing to really think about is the time commitment and how long you think it will take to complete your program. I mean, these are, you know, big investments to make in your life. And so, for example, when it comes to the time commitment for master's programs, again, it's going to depend on whether you're full-time or part-time, but typically master's programs are completed in 1 to 3 years. I'd say as little as 1 year, and 2 to 3 years is more common, whereas doctoral programs are typically closer to 4 to 5 years. If you're attending full-time, they certainly could take even longer than that. So I'm going to pause here and turn it over to my colleague, Jen Roberts, who will talk more about these time investments and really other considerations that I really just touched on.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. And you're still driving, right?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So to just kind of launch off of some of the details that Amanda gave you, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what graduate school looks like, some of the considerations about the details. But I want to emphasize how awesome grad school is, that it is this really fantastic opportunity to really do what you love and learn a lot and to interact with people who are doing the same thing. And so, I'll go over some of these details, but I certainly want to start with that as an emphasis. And so it is one of these places where you get to dive deep into something that you're interested in and that you really like. So it may give you the opportunity to actually get into the laboratory, get into a studio, a theater, into a classroom, or working with human subjects. Depending on your field, it may actually get you into the field and allow you to do that training at the graduate level that maybe wasn't open to you at the undergraduate level. Next prompt. And it tends to be a little bit smaller class size, and you have people who are in those classes, as I said, who are pursuing the same degree, have some of the same background. And so you're now among peers and people who are getting closer to being experts. And so you have a lot of people to bounce ideas off of and have really high level and in-depth conversations and learn a lot from your peers. And it also may be, whether you are wanting to, to do something like a PhD, or you're just gaining some specialized skills you need for a specific career, it allows you to gain some of those specialized skills. Maybe, you were introduced to them and have some basic skills in your field. This actually allows you to really, practice and become more expert in those skills. And usually this is looking like something like a master's degree. It could be a doctoral degree, and we have several different flavors of those. And the research-based ones are going to be a little bit more time-intensive, research-intensive. The others are going to probably be a little bit more based on the classroom and perhaps on a practicum and some other pieces that you draw in from the profession. What's great about graduate school is that a lot of times you're driving the agenda. It's student-centered, so you are able to decide what direction you want if you're doing a research-based degree, where you want that research or your creative work or that practice, whatever it is, to go. So it allows you a lot of latitude to ask original questions, to investigate things and create things that no one has done before. And so you can contribute originally to this body of knowledge and to the greater good. And you usually do that with some some advice, right? Some guidance. And so, but again, that can be very student-centered. You would want to reach out and investigate who is in specific disciplines and what sort of research or creative work are they doing, who has interests that align with yours, and maybe that's somebody who would be a good advisor for you. And then what other sorts of people would be a good support system in terms of helping you reach those research and creative goals. And beyond that, you want to think about what the one-on-one interactions are like. For instance, I'm a supervisor for graduate students, and I'm incredibly hands-off. And while that can be great to give people space to be creative and think on their own, it can also be a little scary for my students. And they sometimes want me around a little bit more than I want to be sometimes, in terms of giving them that space to grow. So understanding what people's working relationships are like, or styles are like, are another really important place to think about who you want to work with, and how you want that research experience to unfold in graduate school. And then, of course, your peers are going to be critical to that as well. So if you are in a group that has, a number of different people who are working under the same discipline at the same time, what does that look like? If you're a scientist, are there postdocs and PhD students and master's students and undergraduates, or are you working really pretty independently? And is that a good fit for you? And again, those are things that you want to interrogate and really think about personally, so that you find something that works really well for what, how you work and where you want to go. And here's just a link to an article that really talks about some of these things in a little bit more depth on how you find a supervisor for your graduate program. And the other part that I would say is really important here, and it may be your committee, it may be your supervisor, is to think about mentors that are outside that your department, outside your committee, and that is a way to get more personalized feedback. For instance, when I'm being very hands-off and trying to give people space, my students might have other mentors that they can reach out to and bounce some ideas off in that space where maybe either I'm not available, or I'm not making myself available for them to sort of grow in that space. So having a number of different people who can look at what you're doing and why you're doing it, being available and having those different connections will give you more opportunities and just give you a richer experience overall, as well as a support system. And there's a number of different mentors. You don't need to think of it being just specifically at the university. It may be your peers, but it can be people in the profession, it can be alumni, it can be friends, family, community leaders, people who are all over your personal space can act as mentors, and you should think of them as such. For me, one of the best mentors I had in graduate school was the librarian. He would pull articles for me as they came in, and I would go in and he'd be like, "Hey, did you see this great article?" And we would read it. And he wasn't a geologist, but we would have wonderful discussions, and he was a wonderful connection for me intellectually. So always look out for those people in your life who can support you and give you new ideas and be part of this journey. And there we go. And I will pass off to Howard, because that is exactly where he can help you find those people.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks, Jan, thanks, Amanda, for inviting me to be here. I think I want to start kind of where Jen started, which is to say that in my own personal experience, graduate school was a lot of fun. I met many people in different spaces who were mentors. That included finding a faculty member whose my research interests intersected with theirs, talking with not only people that were in my cohort, but students that were at advanced levels from where I started. So PhD students where I was starting at an MA. And also, and this is my experience on this campus, is there are a lot of organizations, social research events where you get to interact with students that are in other graduate degree programs. And so I ended up making relationships with people that were outside of my actual degree program. And that was really beneficial, both from a professional and a personal standpoint. So kind of wanted to start there. But my role as director of the Jayhawk Career Network is to try to help KU students get connected with alumni resources. Part of the value proposition of coming to this institution or going to any institution that you can name is access and networking with the alumni. And at KU, we have over 300,000 living alumni globally. And so my work is really to try to create opportunities for students, graduate students, people within the Jayhawk community to connect with those resources, those ideas, those individuals that live in our Jayhawk community on a global scale. And you can see there that the Jayhawk Career Network gives students and alumni access to career resources, jobs, programming, events, connections at every stage of the career. And around this wheel that you can see here, these are the pillars that we base our work on. So continuing education, career networking, KU mentoring, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about momentarily, industry engagement, professional development, and career success and outcomes. And so what we're doing is really trying to create those opportunities that will help students advance what they want to do professionally. And one of the ways that we can do that, we go to the next slide, please, Amanda, is through the KU mentoring platform. And I'm going to go ahead and pop up in the chat right now the URL. So we have almost 8,400 users. That includes undergraduate students, graduate students, faculty, and as well as alumni on mentoring.ku.edu, what we call the KU mentoring platform. And this is, as I sometimes describe it, kind of a localized LinkedIn. It's a LinkedIn for Jayhawks. And we have people that live all across the country and all across the globe, alumni who have raised their hand and stepped forward and said, yes, I can serve as a mentor or a networking opportunity for those students that are currently in the KU system. And we are growing very rapidly. We are up over 20% in terms of people that have joined this platform since July 1 of 2020. And so this is really one of the value propositions of attending school at KU is access to this alumni network. And what we really wanted to show here today is that KU is really taking a lead role in trying to provide direct access for students, for graduate students to those alums. And so Jen just mentioned your mentors may be a faculty member, they may be peers, they may be staff members in support units that you interact with on campus or teaching supervisors, lots of different places, but they can also be alumni. And so we have students that are currently using the mentoring platform to source job shadowing opportunities, to build flash mentoring into long-term mentoring relationships, that are utilizing the job board that's there for experienced job seekers, that are sourcing questions about what skills that they should be developing or honing or building while in school by crowdsourcing that question to alumni on our discussion board. And so this is really one of the, again, the value propositions of attending school at KU is access to that large and talented alumni network, so many of whom are really raising their hand to give back to students right now. Next slide, please, Amanda. And this is what it looks like when you log in. So just kind of taking a screenshot here of 8 alums that happened to be on my page when I opened the mentoring platform recently. And you can see they're in a lot of different places. They do a lot of different things. And when an alum joins this platform, raises their hand and says, this is a way I want to give back to the university by being available to other Jayhawks and to students, they identify the help topics that they're most willing to work with you on. And so you can see there on the left-hand side, that includes applying and navigating graduate school. So there are people right there, alumni, who have said, this is something I'm willing to talk with you about. Career industry trends, internships and job search strategies, mock interviews. We just recently helped 50 students in January get mock interviews by using the mentoring platform. Parenting and career for those working professionals, those folks that have families that are trying to go back to graduate school, work-life balance, job shadowing, diversity, inclusion, racial, gender, sexual identity in the workplace, and multi-generational workplaces are all help topics that we have alumni waiting right now to talk with you about. And also, I mentioned we have a job board for experienced job seekers, and we have affinity groups and a discussion board here on the mentoring platform. And so I'm proud to be associated with the university for a lot of reasons. I'm proud to be associated with the university in this particular way because it really does create a direct pathway where you, as a graduate student, as an MA student, as a PhD student, can really bring alumni into your support network, into your career network, to be those mentors, to be those networking contacts that might help get you an opportunity someplace. And so, that's just wanted to highlight for you, make sure that you know what the Jayhawk Career Network is, how it can help you, and particularly how it might help you in a graduate school setting. And I'll turn it back over to Amanda.
Thanks, Howard. And actually, this is Jen. I'll pass it over to you.
Okay. So while you are thinking about those career options, networking, getting support, you also need to sort of think about the timeline and the components of a graduate degree that differ a little bit from a bachelor's degree. And that is, you still have coursework, obviously, but many of our degrees, both master's and PhD, have what we call milestone exams. So it may be a comprehensive exam that can have an oral component and a written component that allows you to, say, gosh, I have all this knowledge, I know all of these things, and you get the stamp of approval to move on with the rest of your degree. Often your research or some sort of creative work. And pretty much all of our master's and PhD will have some sort of final defense where you have a public presentation or a performance, an installation, and then some sort of examination with a committee where they ask you about, why you did what you did, why it's meaningful, how it's an original contribution. Next part. And then the thing that usually sets things apart for our graduate degrees are that written component, a thesis or a dissertation. And that thesis or dissertation may include original material as well, maps, works of art, musical scores, data. So it's not just necessarily words, but usually it includes some sort of document that explains all of those other pieces. And it's a necessary part of your degree. So I always tell my students, even if you do everything else, you can't graduate unless you have your thesis written. So start writing it now. And we can always, if we have something, we can always work on it, get it going. But you could have straight A's, the perfect data set. You could have interpreted that data, but if it isn't, in a document where other people can see it, refer to it, and use it to move the field forward, then you haven't completed your degree. So the writing component is usually a really, really important part of the graduate degree, and certainly finding ways to improve your writing, to get good writing habits are probably going to be part of what you will find as part of your graduate education. If you are one of those fantastic writers who just words flow, I salute you. But for most people, it's a skill that we hone continually. And then time. I think Amanda already gave you a little bit of this, but what is a little bit different in our graduate degree is that often you may have some courses that are on a semester scale, but the rest of your research may not be. And so you may not have clear grades associated with it. So you may have to sort of adjust some of your expectations of how things get done, and the fact that revision occurs, and you may be continually working on something. You may not get a grade and then move on to the next thing. You may be working on something for 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes more years, and continually, revising and honing it and making it better. Next part. So just to give you an idea though, so if we're looking at a master's degree or a PhD, as Amanda said, 1 or 2 years for a master's, PhD, just let's say 3 to 5, you may be doing 6 to 9 hours of coursework a semester. If you are employed as an assistant, that would be a GTA, so a teaching assistant, a research assistant, or a graduate assistant, which is typically in the museums and in education. You may also be working doing that work, and then you're probably spending maybe another 20 hours doing research, actually out there doing writing or practicing or thinking, reading, getting the materials you need to finish your thesis or your dissertation. And some of that may or may not include travel, depending on the field that you're in. And so sometimes there are delays. Sometimes things don't go as planned, and certainly COVID-19 has been exactly that case for a lot of people. In terms of travel being shut down, archives being shut down, a lot of different things, human subjects research shut down. And so we always have to sort of build in a little bit of time and mainly resilience for the unexpected. And that is what they say about research. If we knew what was going to happen, we wouldn't call it research. So that is one thing, to just put out there in your brain. And then if you are working full time and you're going to be working at it as a part-time, it may extend your time to degree. You may be able to do up to 6 hours of coursework a semester, probably more like 3. It sort of depends on what your work schedule looks like and the format of the courses. And again, then you probably have some time that you're going to be doing research and writing and those things as well. Oh, and then my favorite thing to tell you, work-life balance is key. When I was a graduate student, the chair of the department found me in the lab one night at like 8 o'clock and celebrated that if a natural disaster had hit, that he and I would be the only two impacted, and wasn't I like the model graduate student that I was there working late at night. And later, and of course, at the time I took that as a badge of honor. Later in life, I would say, I should have been home. So know yourself and know what it takes for you to be healthy and well and resilient, and make sure you are able to do those things and get those things that you need. Because your life cannot pause for your graduate degree. It needs to to be enriched by it. And so you need to make sure that both of those things are working in tandem to keep you healthy and productive.
Oh.
And rely on, and again, that's my other thing. That's the mentorship piece again. Rely on the people in your life to get through some of those pieces that take a little resilience.
All right, thank you, Jen. So I wanted to take just a minute to remind everyone about some additional events this week. So tomorrow's session at 10 o'clock is about employment opportunities. So we will have someone from our University Career Center and then a staff member from our College of Liberal Arts and Sciences talking about ways that really graduate school can support your career goals and ways to kind of do some more searching to identify how you might make those connections and really learn more information about what those career opportunities are for you at the graduate level. At 10 o'clock, I should say these are all Central Standard Times as well. So 10 o'clock on Wednesday, we'll walk through in more detail the specific application and admission process. It'll be a broad presentation where we will certainly talk about some of the specific requirements for KU, but they should pretty closely match any institution that you might be looking at. And then on Thursday, we will have someone from our Financial Aid and Scholarships office talk a lot more about the various funding opportunities that folks have as graduate students. And then throughout the week, programs and departments are hosting sessions, and so I would certainly encourage you to attend any specific program session that you might be interested in. And all of these general sessions, so the employment application and funding session, they'll all be recorded, and we'll also share the presentation slides. And then if any of the departmental sessions are recorded or if they have slides to share, we will certainly share those as well. And then a few more resources. So some of the resources that we talked about here. So these are the links to the Alumni Association and the Jayhawk Career Network. The KU Engineering Career Center has some really good resources that are broad. They're not specific necessarily to engineering, but are broad about looking at graduate and professional school options. The affordability link there links to information specifically on program costs. Our graduate program profiles provide a snapshot of a lot of information specifically about graduate programs. So about the number of students that are typically enrolled, the number of students they typically admit, how long it takes to earn a degree, the percentage of students that are funded. So it's a one-page snapshot, and we have data that go through 2019 at this point. We should have more up-to-date data soon, but I still think this will give folks a good idea of what really the profile of that program looks like. And then that last link is a link to the graduate admissions page to really learn more about programs. There are links to program-specific information as well as the graduate application itself. And then these are a few of the resources that we either mentioned or used for some of the material that we presented. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics has a lot of different data and resources that you can use to really look at career information by degree type. Idealist.org is a really great resource, generally looking at reasons to consider going to graduate school. And then the Peterson's Guide to Graduate School also talks a lot about different things to consider when looking at graduate school as an option. So I've listed my contact information here. Certainly feel free to email me anything afterwards or later on when you're thinking about stuff. So I am going to go ahead and stop sharing before we open it up to questions here. So let me stop sharing and stop recording.